We have reached the main event of the evening.
This is Voice of the Cage Radio with the voice of the cage himself, Patrick Stanger.
We're about to tussle.
Fighters, trainers, promoters, events, rumors. If it has to do with MMA, we're talking about it. Here's your host, Patrick Stanger.
Welcome to Voice of the Cage Radio. I'm Patrick Stanger, your host, and with me as usual is Paul Erickson from TexasMMA.com, TXMMA.com. I'm excited. We have a special guest in the studio.
Yes, we do. You want to introduce him?
We have Tim Kennedy, Strikeforce fighter and American hero. Tim Kennedy, how you doing, Tim?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to be in here.
I'm not sure how you feel about being called an American hero, but that seems to be kind of, what they're doing with Strikeforce, kind of promoting you as the Special Forces American hero. How do you feel about that?
I'm not a big fan of it. I'd rather have my performances in the cage, have the clout and prowess behind my performances really be speaking than what I've done overseas. Everybody that's been deployed, it's kind of like, it's a deployment. You just kind of tuck that away and leave it there. And then the next time you go, you learn from it. But, that's past. I would rather just people know from my knockouts and submissions.
So Tim, I'm curious, you're coming off a victory and a loss, of course. And so what are some of the lessons that you've pulled out of that, going into this fight, that you've got coming up?
Well, my past, 4 or 5 fights have been really short.
Right.
I haven't had a lot of material to improve upon. You're in the ring for a few minutes. I'm in dominant position the whole time, or I'm sitting there pounding a guy. My coaches don't have much material to be like, hey, this is what we need to drill. My last fight was 25 minutes of me not looking stellar.
Right.
So now my coaches have a ton of stuff for me, or have had a ton of stuff for me to work on for the past 6 months. My footwork's way better. My head movement's way better. My timing of my punches and the angles that I'm punching from. If I was going to try to akin myself to somebody, it's trying to imitate how Manny Pacquiao comes in and out against bigger, fat fighters, being as fast and athletic as he is. That's really what I've tried to model as my striking style.
Right, and I guess the last match, your opponent's a guy that is extremely aggressive, so it's actually not a bad thing that you went the distance with him because he breaks most people, with his pace. So it's there's a lot to improve on actually, like you said, but it's still a pretty good performance. Now going into this next fight on the Fejao versus Henderson card, what do you think of this fight coming up? What's your well, you're not going to give away your whole strategy, of course, but what are some observations that you have about your opponent?
Well, it's no secret that Melvin is a explosive, very dangerous striker. His kickboxing's, in my opinion, almost unparalleled in MMA. The number of KOs and TKOs in his 25 wins, he has 24 or 23 of them by knockout or TKO. So he's very dangerous. He's fast. He has vicious hooks. He punches from weird angles. He's short, so he actually jumps into some of his punches. And he has one punch KO power, but he throws dozens of punches at a time. I think he's very underestimated in his wrestling ability. His takedown defense, I think, is better than most people give him credit for. If you watch some of his fights with very grappler dominant type guys, even in his losses, you see him stuff numerous times Polio Afilo, and in his most recent loss, he stopped 6 or 7 takedowns before he actually ran into the guy's guard and then got swept and submitted from there. But so he's very dangerous. I don't think he's the full MMA package. I think there's weaknesses that I'm going to try to exploit.
Right.
Everybody's like, oh, you could take the easy route, take him down. But I don't necessarily think that that's always the best way to beat somebody, even if that's his weakness. He also knows that's his weakness.
Right. He's probably been training, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Getting ready for you, thinking that you're going to take him down. So.
Absolutely. So, why not go low and then come high, or, explode high and then go low? There's a lot of different ways. Kind of how Gilbert fought Josh the first time, where he'd throw heavy hands and then go for a low takedown, or then he'd go fake a low takedown and come over the top with heavy hands.
Right.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there for looking for an exciting knockout.
Tim Kennedy has a fight coming up March 5th on Showtime against Melvin Manhoff. Also on that card will be Dan Hendo Henderson and Fei Zhao. You're a few weeks out from your fight. Now, what's a day in the life of Tim Kennedy right now?
It's miserable. I get up early. I have a pretty intense strength and conditioning workout where it's about 2 hours of us doing fast twitch athletic performance stuff. Then I have 3 hours off and I go do some technical training, whether it be boxing or jiu-jitsu or wrestling. And then my last workout is around fight time, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And that's my hard sparring. You know, I bring in guys. I've imported a lot of guys that are similar in build, stature, and speed to Melvin. And then I just starve the rest of the time. So, you know, like on my way to the studio here, I was eating celery and a branched chain amino acid pill. Like that was my dinner.
So you got your chin busted the other night training with Paul Ventello?
Yeah. He was trying to defend takedowns, and I faked, and he fell forward, and I rushed on top of him, and he pulled his head back, trying to get back to his feet. And I was trying to put him on the ground, and he yanked his head back, hit my chin, kind of split me open. But it's bumps and bruises, pre-fight training. Everybody gets them.
Where are you training these days, by the way?
I'm splitting my time while I'm here in Austin, between Austin Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then a Helson Gracie school. Phil Cardell is in South Austin. The first half of my camp, I spent at Greg Jackson's, where Rashad Evans and John Jones and Carlos Condit were all getting ready for their fights before Rashad got hurt. Keith Jardine was getting ready for his fight. He's actually fighting Aaron Lofton, a local here from Austin. And I actually trained with Aaron.
Right, he's training over there at Cardella's gym.
Yeah, so it was love Keith, fan of Keith. So you know, like I kind of want them both to win. Anyways, it's awkward, but and you know, just crushing it at all three gyms.
Well, I read on Facebook that you were going to do sprints one day, or you're doing sprints, or what was it that you were doing?
We were at Jackson. He does this team building thing, which it's just him trying to be cruel and sinister to his athletes. He takes us out to these sand dunes, and especially when new guys get there, we haven't adjusted to the elevation. You know, they're over a mile up, and you get to the gym. You know, your first couple of training sessions, everybody knows that you're new and your body hasn't acclimated, and then you go and sprint these sand dunes. It was like Arlovsky and myself, sounding like mules with harpoons through our lungs, running up these huge sand dunes. But I'm not gonna let anybody. I'm a very competitive person, and
really,
yeah. So I pretty much killed myself. I couldn't walk right for like 2 days.
I could imagine that. I went to Breckenridge a few years ago, and you know, I couldn't do anything for the first 2 days I was there. I was having severe altitude sickness.
Tim, let me actually flash back to something you said earlier. I'm curious here in town. I mean, we mentioned where you're training. Where you're doing your strength and conditioning, by the way.
Doing it with Coy Schneider.
Okay.
He used to be one of the trainers at CTC Competitive Training Center, and he trained all the pro athletes there, and he's my guy. So we go to some different CrossFit gyms, depending on what we're doing for that day,
right?
Because it's very athletic performance centered. Seeing fast, very powerful movements.
Great. I just want to make sure that, you know, as long as we give a mention to some of the gyms here in town, that, you know, we're also mentioning some of the people that help out on the other side of the equation, you know, because to be a professional fighter these days, besides the skill set, you know, you have to be very strong and conditioned physically. And so I think a lot of the guys that handle strength and conditioning for fighters and pro athletes in general, they're generally the guys that you never hear about, or that don't get much of a plug, or that nobody talks about. So, you know, for example, I'm friends with Kamal, and, you know, he's training with some of the guys over at Atomic Athlete. And, you know, very few people in town know about Atomic Athlete. And it's like, some people know about CrossFit Central, and Dane's Body Shop, and something, but some of the more elite trainers in town and some of the hardcore groups, not that many people know about. So I just want to make sure your guy got a mention. And let me go to a different area here. Actually, Patrick, we'll see what you think. You know, a lot of people come out to Austin and remark it's not like the rest of Texas. You know, it's a very different city. What's it been like for you coming out here to Austin as, you know, kind of a newer transplant, and kind of moving your fight life out here? Any observations you can make?
The three places I've lived prior to here, it's a very easy axe to follow. I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and then Afghanistan, Iraq, and then Fort Benning. So coming to Austin, the weather's amazing, the food's fantastic, the culture is wonderful, the live music's amazing. You know, between Acapulco, South by Southwest, the So my standard of living is like, I can't even compare them. You know, my wife couldn't be happier. She's from Louisiana, so she loves the weather. Love Austin. I'm from California originally. Austin's kind of like California transplanted into Texas. Some of Texas I don't like, but Austin is, I feel at home here. It's I feel like I'm walking the streets of San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Monterey, and but then I can go to the range with my machine gun and have some fun. So it's the perfect balance of everything I love. I
got Patrick's attention.
The fight life's awesome. You know, the very focused training, old school feel to the gyms here.
Right.
You know, the guys are rough. The guys aren't, you know, it's not the polished gyms that you feel in
commercial gym.
Yeah, it's sweat and blood on the walls, and I like that. You know, but the trainers here, Jason Webster, in my opinion, one of the best striking coaches in on the planet, and let alone in the United States. You know, he's here, and the time I spend with him, every time I'm with him, I improve like I hadn't in over a year for the past 10.
Right. And I guess before I let Patrick interject here, it's good we mentioned Jason, because Jason's another one of these unsung guys here in town that, you know, not that many people know about, but arguably is, you know, one of the better Thai martial arts instructors in the country, and not just for Muay Thai, but for Krabi, Krabong, and, you know, other Thai martial arts as well. So Jason's long been behind the scenes here, behind some of the, you know, the better instructors here in town. So I'm glad we mentioned him. Patrick,
do you train in a gi?
Not when I'm getting ready for a fight, but after, I'll call it like technical or skill development time. And that's, I really focus on game or portions of my game that I know I need to improve on. So I have like 3 gis in my garage. And as soon as this fight's over, I know I'm going to be like the top 4 guys that they're looking at having me fight are all very grappling dominant type guys. So I'll be back in the gi looking to sharpen my submission stuff.
Now, I hear you're a pink belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Would you mind, because I'm not aware of the pink belt. How do you get the pink belt?
You crush a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts.
And that's how you get the pink belt.
Yeah. My black belt's in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and I got that, 12 years ago. But most gyms here in the United States now are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the school that I was at in North Carolina, Team Rock with Greg Jackson, he's a hoist black belt. And, you know, I was like, I'm not a Brazilian black belt, but he always wanted me to teach. And I was like, you know, he's like, just wear your black belt. I'm like, this is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. If you say it's Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, or you clarify that I'm a Japanese Jiu-Jitsu black belt, then, you know, then I'll wear my black belt. But if I'm just going to be coming in here to teach, I'm not a Brazilian black belt. So like, you just need to clarify. And he wouldn't do it. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to wear a pink belt then. And as soon as somebody can beat me, then I'll take it off. And I kept my pink belt.
You kept
Awesome.
it?
Yeah.
That's an awesome story. When that cage door closes, I couldn't imagine what that feels like. You know, there's another guy across from me that wants to take my head off. What does that feel like?
I don't even notice the door closing. I don't, you know, I listen to the ref, you know, being attentive to my corners, you know, their last minute instructions, making sure that my body's staying warm. 'Cause sometimes you get out there and you're just waiting for that ref to go, all right, let's go. That a lot of things, the past 4 months, you've been really focused, and you're just trying to channel all of that, not energy, but discipline into, you know, a few movements and moments of performance. You know, having been blown up, RPG'd, shot at, deployed, you know, it's like, it's really not that big of a deal.
I figured that might be your answer, actually. That's fun.
Yeah, you know, it's just fighting. You know, this is like, I get paid to do this. This is fun. No, I'm not going to get hurt in there. Like, what, am I going to get cut? You know, like, no, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to get blown up. This is my fun time. You know, like, this is my time away from getting shot at to punch somebody in the head. Like,
right.
I do this for free, but they're paying for me for it. It's awesome.
So by the time you get in the cage, you're ready to go. You're just like, let's just get this show on the road. And
absolutely. Yeah, mouthpiece is in, double check the cup. All right, let's go. What are we waiting for? Why haven't we started yet?
Well, I guess that's a nice segue into my next question, and I think you probably have discussed it to death in a number of different interviews, but maybe for people that are not aware, with you splitting time between the military and your fight career, or are you even splitting time anymore? You know, how does that work out?
The Texas National Guard really has accommodated. I've been active duty since I left the Operational Detachment Alpha, the Special Forces unit that I was with. I'm now with 19th Special Forces Group, which is a Texas Special Forces unit. And they have facilitated me training full time. So when I have a fight coming up, my job is to train. So I train 3 times a day. As soon as my fight's over, I might be teaching some guys some shooting drills, some sniper training, some CQB stuff, or I might spend some time just talking to soldiers about, like how to live a healthy life. But pre-fight, it's all about fighting, and then post-fight, then I'll get to do some work in uniform.
And is that similar to kind of the arrangement you had at your other stations?
No, before it was before the Zach Cummings fight. So the first fight with Strikeforce against Nick Thompson was I was still active duty on an ODA, splitting my time. I would get up at 5 o'clock to do my strength training. Then I'd go to the range from 8 until noon, and then I'd work out usually on the range. And then I'd pack the stuff up, go back, clean the guns, then go to the gym and do my jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or whatever we were doing that night. My fights would be after my deployments, and it was challenging. It was really hard to compete at an elite level. I think I could have swept the floor with most B-class fighters, but my game would have never improved past where it was with the schedule that I was at.
So it sounds like in a lot of different levels, Austin is a really great arrangement for you.
Yeah, it's a dream come true. I get to train full time, but I still get to have the uniform and still get to be part of the community that I just adore and love.
I want to get you to sign some of your gear, and then what we can do is, for the listeners out there, they can go to the Voice of the Cage Facebook fan page. If you go to that and you hit like, what I can do is I can select a random winner from that, and I can send him some of your fight gear that you've signed.
No, absolutely. I brought in a couple of Ranger Up t-shirts. It's a website that's all owned by military guys, prior Ranger Battalion, Special Forces guys, and we just made the website to make fun of things that are military, and everybody in the military likes MMA, so then we started making MMA stuff, and so these are some of our own shirts that I'll autograph for you guys.
Who was behind the Jorge video with Bisping, by the way?
That was Nick Palmachano, Tom Amenta, Kelly Krieger, and all from Ranger Up. That
was hysterical. As Paul knows, I can't stand Bisping, so I
couldn't help but posting it everywhere you could. Anything making fun of Michael Bisping is like candy to you.
Well, not only it's like a two-edged sword. It's making fun of Bisping, which is awesome. I'm not a huge Bisping fan. I actually think most of his fights are pretty boring. But
calling him out right here
right,
on the Voice of the Cage show.
Come to Strikeforce though. He fights very poorly when he's emotionally involved in the fights. It was brilliant by Jorge. He just wants to get underneath his skin. People are like, "Oh, Jorge's such a jerk." But if you take a step back and look at like the big picture, like from a month ago, it was Jorge just trying to get inside Bisping's head. That's exactly what he did. So Jorge's a great friend of mine. He's a Ranger Up sponsored fighter.
Patrick, what was your prediction for the Henderson-Fejau fight? Did you pick Henderson?
Yeah, definitely.
I think I actually picked Henderson by decision because I didn't think he's going to be able to put Fejau away. Tim, what do you think of that fight?
I'm a huge fan of both those guys. I think Henderson has it. I don't see Fejau being able to do anything on the ground. I don't think he's going to have the wrestling to take Dan down, even though his jiu-jitsu is fantastic. And then in the striking realm, yeah, he's explosive, but when has Dan ever been hurt or outboxed? He's not known for a boxer, but anybody.
Rare. I think who got to him? Vanderlei got to him. And then that's about it. I think really, very few people.
And the dirty where Fejau likes is in the clinch. But that's
where Henderson excels.
With the dirty boxing, the gross takedowns. When I say gross, I mean they're not pretty, but they work.
Right.
And you don't want Henderson on top of you for any amount of time.
I wouldn't want him on top of me, that's for sure. I appreciate you stopping by, Tim. It's been good. It's again, you can see Tim Kennedy fighting on Showtime,
March 5th, Columbus, Ohio. So that's a card being headlined by Rafael Fejau versus Dan Henderson. I believe the Misha Tate fight has been changed. Misha got hurt. And of course, Tim's fighting Melvin Manoff from Holland.
It's gonna be a great card. I think they have a ton of. It's gonna be part of the Arnold Classic.
Arnold Classic, that's right.
And they have like 12 local fighters that are gonna be competing there. So I think the turnout's gonna be fantastic. I love fighting in front of big crowds. It just amps up the fighters. So it's going to be fun.
I bet, man. I bet. Just, I ring announce too. And when I get in the cage and I'm in there with the fighters and the crowd's going, and I mean, that's the best feeling in the world. And then I get to leave the cage, which I like even better.
Yeah, no, it starts compounding. Like the announcer starts getting into it, the crowd starts getting into it, the fighters start getting into it. I always talk about how much I love when the other fighter comes to fight. There's guys that come in there to look for the W, whatever, great for your career, but you're fighting for the fans, you're fighting for the experience, you're fighting to fight. That's what MMA is. I believe the sport will die if guys just go out there to try to point out a win. But when everything starts going right and people just start getting into it and the fighter, there's nothing like it. That's why MMA is so quickly growing to be one of the biggest spectator sports in the United States, because it can have that excitement.
Absolutely. It makes sense to me.
I guess, you mentioned it earlier, and I forgot to ask you then, but you said that MMA is very popular in the military. And we know that, the UFC's made some efforts to try and do shows at, Marine bases. And then, of course, here in Texas at Fort Hood. And, has Strikeforce shown similar interest to try and, liaise with the military to try and cooperate on shows, or at least for fighters, or some kind of promotional work?
Definitely. I can't say where they're going or what they have planned, but they have some really neat ideas that they've been pitching, and I'm really hoping to be part of them. Like maybe getting to fight on an aircraft carrier, or
that'd be cool.
It would be awesome. So they have a lot of stuff that they're working on. There's going to be some of my bosses that are going to be at my fight on March 5th. And, they have a very serious interest in seeing MMA because they know soldiers like it. The new recruits, the demographics of people wanting to come into the military, it's a male 17 to 25, same guys that watch MMA. So the advertising budget would be very similar to, they'd get their bang for their buck.
And I remember they, and excuse me, I'm kind of ignorant of the situation. I was in an arrangement previously, I think, where they believed that, modern Army combatives, or at least having fighters that were active, in service and also competing in MMA was sort of an interesting way to generate awareness of the Army, to create good public image and kind of get people excited about it. I believe Damian Stelly was one of these guys that was fighting a while back. Does the Army still behind that, right? Letting people fight?
They kind of indirectly support. They do let the soldiers fight. It's a win-win situation for them. When a soldier competes and all the soldiers around him train, that level of hand-to-hand combat, or the modern Army combative skill level, increases. So then you have a more trained force, which is better. That's always great. And the interest in them wanting to be physically active and do, great things, hand-to-hand combat, modern Army combatives, again, it's a great interest. And then these guys competing, when they go out and talk about either they're soldiers or from the Army, they're out in the community, and the awareness of them being part of these different organizations on a very grassroots level just starts working back into the Army. So yeah, it's a great thing that they're doing.
Have you had a chance to use your skills in combat yet?
I have. Some of the times went well, some of the times it didn't. Thankfully, the really important ones, I think I got to save some people's lives because of what I knew as a martial artist. Went into a room, guy rushed me. He's just freaking out, and family's in the other room. Had I not kind of had the skills that I had, I probably would have really had to hurt him, if not shoot him. But instead, I could just hip through him and into the wall, and he's unconscious, laying on the ground, and he's pretty easy to flex cuff. And he wakes up and is like, "Hey, buddy, just chill out. You're fine. So is your family. Look, they're next to you." And then another time we were waiting to go in, and the people on the outside of the house was like, "Hey, there's a crazy person in there," but we didn't know if they were talking like jihad crazy or like legitimately insane. Well, coincidentally, the guy was insane, and so we go in there, and we couldn't know the difference. And he comes in, he's acting all crazy because he was crazy, and so I didn't have to shoot him. I just I shot a double leg, picked him up, and put him on the ground and flex cuffed him. That was the end of the story.
No ground and pound.
No.
No elbow.
No. Just super nice flex cuffs. Hey, everything's gonna be okay. When you got 12 special forces guys, I'm the littlest guy I was the littlest guy on my unit, and I was walking at like 230 when I was deployed. You got 12 juggernauts that are bearded out, hair hanging out from out their helmets. They're wearing like 8 or 9 guns. When we come knocking on your door, it's a bad night. So, I was really, really nice. As nice as it could have gone for those guys, it went.
Well, awesome. Thanks again for coming by. We know you got to go train tonight, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, it was an honor to be here. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Voice of the Cage Radio with the Voice of the Cage, Patrick Stanger. Please email questions. Do you want me to say please or just email? Please seems so out of place.
Did I say please? Sorry. No, don't.
Let me elbow you in the face and please email your inquiries. Okay. Email questions, inquiries, and other business to info@voiceofthecage.com. Facebook search Voice of the Cage and like to get the latest Voice of the Cage radio show. To book Patrick Stanger at your next fight promotion, visit voiceofthecage.com.